I'm Rob Downey, a family practice MD and Institute for Functional Medicine certified practitioner. I'm coming to you from Seaworthy Functional Medicine in Homer, Alaska. Seaworthy exists to help people overcome their health challenges and be fully vital. What do we need to know about functional medicine in terms of functional diagnostic nutrition? Today, we could not be more fortunate than to be joined by the founder of this approach, Reed Davis. Reed, thanks for your time today.
Hey, thank you, Dr. Rob. It's my pleasure to be here.
Like a number of luminaries that we're so privileged to spend time with, Reed is multi-certified, multi-boarded, and has extensive impact in multiple domains, including creating thousands of practitioners who help people in 50 countries around the world, and also helping thousands of patients at the center where he works in Southern California.
Thank you.
The cool thing for me getting ready for today was thinking about how much I enjoyed this being for me a two-part experience, and I frequent I frequently kind of invoke the Star Wars universe, and so there's the Jedis and the Padawan learners, right? And the Padawan learners are often incredibly skilled with their lightsaber, and Evan Transu was exactly that when I got to spend time with him recently. Just prodigiously capable, charismatic, smart, insightful, commonsensical, heart-driven, just a really impressive guy. And so for our audience, who I thank for joining us today, we get to hang out with the Jedi. So that's quite a neat thing.
Called worse things.
um, well, the I think the thing to do today is just to get to hear from somebody with as much experience as yours. Um, let's start with talking about functional lab testing versus traditional, but let's just tie it in with why, maybe help people understand kind of the origin story of why it was necessary to create what you created, because it's just so salient to people's struggles now that they weren't getting their needs met in a kind of, in a fractured or conventional system.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. The reason I created FDN was just for the patients coming in our office. I started in the late 90s working in an office where everyone coming in had been to 6 or 8 or 10 practitioners already. And that kind of blew my mind. I wasn't a physician. I was running the operation. I'd come out of environmental law, saving the whole planet, and decided just to work on people instead. And I had a lot to learn, as you can imagine, but nothing to unlearn. So I was just tasked with, and it was a task I imposed on myself to try to be the last person they needed to see. I hated seeing, what do you mean you've been to 6, 8, 10 and you're not better yet? So I didn't know what the medical system was about. I hadn't been to a doctor except for, uh, muscular or bones breaking and things like that, sports injuries, some dental work maybe, but I didn't know what the system was like. And people didn't want just another diagnosis. They've already been given 3 or 6 or whatever. Every doctor they went to gave them a different diagnosis. And they would go outside of that to the alternative practitioners and weren't finding results there either. They're being sold something, some supplements or modality, some kind of therapy or something that might have helped a bit. So I had determined that I would find out what was really wrong with them. That's, to me, shouldn't have been a new concept. But 25 years ago, it apparently no one was really looking far enough upstream to all the metabolic processes that are involved, um, and then providing a comprehensive, plan for that person on an individual basis. So that's what I was able to do, and I was really, really fortunate to be in the company of great people. I mentioned before we recorded Dr. Bill Timmons and lots of others who were pioneers. They're the true pioneers. I get called one now. OG, you're an OG. I thought it was old guy, but you're old geezer. But the real
Yeah.
0 OGs, 's, they're the real 0 OGs, 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 they're the real 0 OG I was in this clinic, just every person walking in. What labs can we run? Let's look at saliva and urine, some blood and some stool. But a lot of these people had run testing. You know this, and
Mhm.
your audience knows this too. I bet there's lots in your audience that either themselves or someone they know was told nothing's wrong with you. Your blood work looks normal, and yet they
Mhm.
know there's something wrong. And
Mhm.
so I ran the labs, which back then were completely alternative. To this day, insurance doesn't pay for many of them because they're outside of standard medicine. But I ran those labs thousands, and it took 10 years. I spent 10 years there. Anyone that was game to run these labs. And so um, they look further upstream. They look not so much for diagnosis. Some of them are research use only still. So that means there's no DX code. You can't bill insurance.
Mhm.
And it's just what's really wrong. So it's the imbalances and dysfunctions far upstream. And I'll just finish by saying that the pattern I recognized is what formed the basis of what we ended up calling functional diagnostic nutrition. And I didn't even label what I was doing for 10 years until I had to for a conference and workshop I put together, which I was kind of pushed into doing. I only did what I did to make our clients happy and healthy, and we established ourselves as pretty good place to go in Southern California. And I think I'm answering your question, but can take it anywhere you want. We ran the alternative labs that, and I ran so many of them that one day a lab director, it was Bill Timmons' son, called me up and says, "Who the hell are you?" "What do you mean?" He goes, "You read more than our best five doctors combined. Our top
Mhm.
five doctors who are running using our
Mhm.
lab, you run more than, so you should be teaching. Whatever you're doing, you should be teaching." And
Mhm.
I finally put a little class together,
Mhm.
and now
Mhm.
it's grown into quite a movement.
Very cool. Well, I want to just flag a couple of things as we segue into achieving optimal health with an individualized approach. One is that I think it appears very humble for you to acknowledge the folks that inspired you. And I find that the 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 people that inspire me, that help me get out of bed every day excited for my job, often have had a luminary or luminaries really fire them up and encourage them. And the other thing that stands out is so striking to me, and I think this is good for our audience to know, is that universally the folks I get to talk to on this podcast are driven by some mission or service objective. And then this could sound a little woo, but the universe then sort of creates the the details. The
Yes,
person saying, "Hey, you should teach a class. You should formalize this. What you're doing is really important. You're doing more labs than five of our docs combined. You need to codify this." And I think there's an integrity to processes that emerge from that heart of service.
yes,
So,
yeah,
uh,
that was it. I just wanted to help people.
yeah, yeah, and it sounds so simple, and yet it doesn't necessarily imbue everything that's happening in our world. And so just the ability to discern as a consumer or a participant where the pockets of integrity are is super, super important in this terrain
Yes,
that we're in, I think. So if it makes sense, just there's this individualization. Also, you're going to be talking to us about dressing health for success.
mm,
But where's the logical, if a person's listening to this and they say, well, what does Reed have to offer me? Part of what I talked with Evan Transu about is just people can't get their hands on the stuff that they're learning really matters. And a lot of our audience now, they are familiar with functional medicine, or they listen to other podcasts, or they read books. But what should people know next about not only getting their hands on the thyroid panel or the gut testing or what have you, but also about working with folks in your domain? Because Evan was just so compelling. I mean, it really made me want, I thought, well, this is perfect, right? Because if I were super interested in this, I'd want to work with somebody who's FDN trained.
Fantastic. My favorite expression. So everything, I just kind of have this boyish, curiosity about things. And, I'm 71 years old, but I feel sometimes like a kid in a playground. And, Thomas Edison, the great worker and inventor, said, I never worked a day in my life. It was all fun. And as I look back 25 years ago, I started running these labs and it was fun, even though I was face to face with Mr. Smith or Mrs. Jones, who have these struggles and things. I was just so curious to run the labs and find out what's really going on. Remember, they were in this cycle of trial and error, and
Mhm.
that's big for us because you've been to a doctor, said nothing's wrong with you, or gave you a simple diagnosis, hypothyroid, whatever it might be, but never really explained why you're hypothyroid or whatever it is. And
Mhm.
physicians, I think, were using and still use the sounds like method. So there's certain clusters of symptoms that would lead you to, oh, that's your gut, or that's your, whatever it might, autoimmune, all these different potential diagnoses. And then you run one lab, maybe two, to confirm that diagnosis. Yep, I solved your problem, and here's your medication, and come back in 3 months. We'll see how those test results look now. And to me, that was
Mhm.
always treating the paper. It's like,
Mhm.
so what are the other labs we could run and to individualize the and we call it self-care. Because I was telling people this frustrated the owners, but I would tell people, look, coming in the office isn't what's going to help you. You're coming in 3 times a week and you're getting your modalities and things that we do, but it's what you do at home that matters. So, well, what should I do? And so these what we alluded to with the dress program were the patterns that I recognize. So, yes, I had amazing mentors, Bill Wolcott and Bill Bailey and Bill Timmons, who we talked about, the owner and creator of a fascinating laboratory. But it was the experience, it was the volume of work I did that allowed me to recognize these patterns. And so I recognized hormones are important. The immune system is also important. And so is digestion, and so is detoxification. So is energy production and nervous system balance. We had chiropractic where you balance the autonomic nervous system. That's really critical. And so, but what I also noticed is that every person had some degree of dysfunction in all of these areas. There was never one thing. So root
Mhm.
cause medicine, which you hear about, that's what we called ourselves. We're root cause, root cause. You may never find it. You're probably going to find 7 or 8 things, at least 5 or 6. And remember, they're all having an effect on each other. So how do you measure that? You can't. Now, I'm a guy who teaches, I teach a course in functional lab work. That's what I do. And natural protocols, all drug-free, self-determined type thing. So I think the answer to your question is, and I don't like the word empowerment, but people need to be educated, uh, not just diagnosed.
Mhm.
And so the education lets you know there are causal factors and they're affecting each other. What the end result is what I call metabolic chaos. You may have heard Evan say that. It's one of our um, coined phrases, metabolic chaos. That's our only concern. Is how do we sort that out for an individual? Because there's a study from University of California, San Diego recently that said the root cause could be gone, may no longer exist. But the downward spiral in metabolism, these
Mhm.
processes still is in
Mhm.
effect, and it's
Mhm.
it's bouncing all over the place. So how do you sort that out? You have to have a step-by-step system. You
Mhm.
have to get wind in the sails and get the ship moving, and then tack and come about and zigzag a little. There's wind in the sails, and the waves pushing the bow off course most of the time, and undercurrents in the water and things. So if you don't have place to begin, the lab work is where we begin, and gives us the data that tells us what's wrong. So then you can apply the general principles of health building inherent in the DRESS program. That's what I was telling him. Go home and live like this, do this in each area. And so I codified this, as you mentioned. It's a good word for it. I call it a methodology, which is a method or steps, but the ology is how you think about something. So it's that self-directed self-care. I just couldn't believe people were putting their health in someone else's hands. How are you putting your health in those guys' hands? It should be in your own hands. That's my bottom line philosophy in response to your question. Again, I'm not sure I answered it, but
No, absolutely, you did. And something I've noticed having done a number of these podcasts now is sometimes I think the audience benefits greatly from hearing kind of a vignette of what it feels like to do the work. So, with your blessing, let's create a little vignette for people. So, let's say they're working with you or Evan. Uh, Probably not you personally now since you're the OG, but uh, they they've connected with Evan or one of these FDN trained practitioners, and they're thinking the TSH isn't enough to know that my thyroid. My doctor told me my TSH of 4.5 is fine, and I'm tired, and my hair's falling out, my nails are thin, I'm overweight and constipated, and I've got all these clues about thyroid needing to be improved, and then I'm really interested in this FDN process. So just share with us what it feels like for a person doing this work with you all when they contact you and say, "I think my thyroid's out of whack.
mhm,
How do I do this plural root causes work
yes.
to move forward?"
So what I like to do, if it's okay, um, in this scenario is to first take the 60,000 foot view, and then we could zoom in a
Hmm.
little bit. So the view starts with your body was designed perfectly. You don't have to teach your cells what their job is. It's an inherent innate intelligence, and we want to use that intelligence. The body wants to heal. So you can reach your genetic potential, which hopefully is really good. Long life, healthy, happy, things like that. So we want you to reach your genetic potential using the innate intelligence of the body, and we're going to coach that up wherever it's dysfunctional. So there's something wrong, and just label what you did there was a perfect example of sounds like method, because that's a traditionally reliable cluster of symptoms that points to thyroid. And again, you run the thyroid test, found your problem, it's low thyroid, here's your pills, come back in through, and we'll see how the test results are doing. So I learned early on, first of all, I'm not a physician, had a lot to learn, nothing to unlearn, but I knew that that wasn't satisfying the people coming in our office. They're like,
Hmm.
yeah, I got this hypothyroid and I'm taking my thyroid and, I feel a little better, but I still have this and this and this and this. That's why we don't diagnose. Because as soon as you do, you lay down a diagnosis, physician, and you might be an expert in that one area. That's why people are coming to you, but you're just automatically ignoring everything else going on with that person. So the 60,000 foot view is that there's an awful lot going on. There's metabolic chaos. And so our solution, remember, to get the wind in the sails, we'll run 5 labs. We'll do saliva, urine, blood, stool, and um, look at a bunch of data that's upstream. And again, the pattern I recognize, I had great mentorship, but the sheer volume and ability to make my own observations created this, what we call the hidden, HIDDEN, and they're hidden. People aren't even looking for them. Hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, nervous system. Now, of course, people ask me, and yeah, you could run other labs too, oxidative stress and lots of things. But these are those causal factors and upstream, I call them healing opportunities. There's no diagnosis in there. Matter of fact, I'm totally against diagnosis now. I'm gonna is as a I hate to say it, quote unquote thought leader. It's like the problem with modern medicine is diagnosis and treatment of specifics. So it's everyone's a whole person. So we took the big view. Now we come in. What are those labs? Hormone. There's different ways. There's different ways to skin the cat, and I teach them all. All the anatomy, physiology, biochemistry. So hormone, which affects the immune system, which affects digestion, the dysbiosis and things. You're not breaking down your food. Now you have nutritional deficiencies. And then you end up with things like leaky gut, because bigger, badder bugs, that's the medical term I use, bigger, badder bugs come along with the dysbiosis, and you get this leaky gut. Now you've got liver congestion, detoxification problems. So with the labs that we run, Doc, there's a you can see the natural progression, how the dominoes are falling. There's stress, which is I consider the root of all evil. Our inability to handle the types of stress that we're subjected to on the planet, whether it be a mental, emotional, psychospiritual, physical. I have all these old injuries from abusing my body. And then the chemical. Remember, I started in environmental law and
Mhm.
conservation. So I know about the 80,000 chemicals that
Mhm.
were being tested on us. So there's all this types of stress. The body responds the same regardless of the type of stress. And you get out of balance. And you see how the dominoes fall from there with our lab work. That's how I I fell into it. Just occurred to me after 10 years and thousands of patients and lab work that was the pattern that was uh, um, where you could identify all these healing opportunities. And then remember, I said we sent people home. It's not coming in the office, and it's not some magic pill. It's what you have to go home and do to live your. This is the key thing: live yourself out of what you've lived yourself into. So there's not only empowerment there, but responsibility too. That this is I can't fix you,
Mhm. Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so that's the whole different. That's the wide approach, and then zeroing in on that HIDDEN. Yeah, there's lab work for that, and it's fascinating to learn and to do, and people are excited. So to your question, the consumer, the health consumer who just wants to feel better, doesn't want to just take a pill anymore. They want to know why, because they're willing to take that responsibility. So yeah, we teach them the DRESS, which I'd be happy to fill you in on.
Yeah. Yeah, well, as we go into that, I'll take a little liberty here. I'd like our audience to think about sort of three silos then. And so one is where I started med school and residency as a family practice MD, and that silo is solely about diagnosis and treatment in its purest manifestation.
Hmm.
And then Institute for Functional Medicine, back when I was trained in 2006,
Wow.
their sort of marketing phrase at the time was re-enchant yourself with clinical medicine, which I thought was brilliant because I was disenchanted.
Yeah, it's perfect.
And then many of us then who are working in as a MD, a DO, a nurse practitioner, PA, etc., we're in this, we've chosen to work within the system, which has blessings and downside. So a lot of the time when I'm using the code of fatigue in functional medicine, that means that person doesn't have perfect energy all day, every day. So I'm
Mhm.
able to check their thyroid and their free cortisol. And I'm always cautioning people, you are not your diagnosis. These are
Yes,
essentially tabs or holding places for ideas that matter. And so there's a lot of conversation in this sort of middle silo around being in the conventional domain, which gives me access to help some people and not others. And then what I love about what you're saying and doing, Reed, is that it's on the third silo is another what I think of as another pure manifestation, which is the best way to not be sick is to be really healthy and vital and
mm,
just run the protocols and go check and see what's happening and just be really healthy and run that stuff independent of diagnosing because we live in anybody hearing this in a Western industrialized society, which is the majority of our audience, they're surrounded by folks who are more than happy to diagnose and treat, which
yeah,
is way out of proportion to what
yeah,
needs to happen. And so I think you and I and others like us need to be the carriers of this message. Do this freestanding part where you simply be really healthy and vital. That takes care of a lot of issues.
absolutely. I'm so glad you pointed that out, that there's a lot of good from standard medicine. So if you get off a plane from West Africa and your temperature's 105 and you're bleeding from your eyeballs, you're not going to call your nutritionist. You're going to get the best MD that you know of, and get that urgent care and get out of the woods. So when people have, this is a good way I think of explaining it, because there are legitimate diagnoses that require medical oversight because they can go south really fast. And it's that speed at which they can go south that physicians are supposed to know about, that they're really good at. They can intervene, they can heroically, stop that progress or whatever it might be. And that explains what we do because we need time. So when the downward spiral is so contracted that the observations we make can't be capitalized on, we need time. So the observations I mentioned, hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, and so on, well, that is going to require some healing, true healing, not just stop the symptoms. And
Mhm.
so that explains why we actually should work very much hand in hand. I like how you use the silos thought or model because as long as you don't just stay in one, if what we're talking about is the integration. Certainly, I have my sandbox and physicians have theirs, but can you play in both? Yes, we can work around the edges of whatever with the lifestyle medicine of whatever that core diagnosis, which has a downward spiral of a contracted downward spiral, whatever that is, and um, it does a lot of good. It doesn't
Mhm.
save every person. We can't
Mhm.
even guarantee anything except reasonable expectations is the way I
Mhm.
like to say it.
Beautiful. Yeah, I have a lot of folks coming in saying, I don't want to take any medication or I'm going to stop all my medications. And I just say, let's build the lily pad you're going to hop to before you take off of this one.
Hey, I love that. I'm going to borrow that one. Yeah.
So, well, let's talk about dressing for health success. I think this is really important next point to get into, huh?
Yes, so remember, 25 years ago, I was in my 40s and I was very excited. I'd come out of one career, which was very successful, environmental law, conservation, and I got disenchanted with it for certain reasons. But when you see enough dead fish and dead birds and pools of water that just are completely destroyed, you start to wonder about people. And so, including myself, again, I was healthy. I'd never really been to a doctor except for an injury, some sort, sports or motorcycles. And and uh, but I cared about people. And my son, who was a high school athlete, was going to this wellness center. I took him in there for chiropractic and he's a super athlete kid. So says his dad. And I mean, I was listening to their approach, and it was just so enlightening and natural, and the body's designed to heal, this innate intelligence. And I just caught on to it and said, I want to work here instead. And they hired me like in 3 days. And in 3 weeks, I was running the place and also going back to school and taking all these nutrition courses and fitness. And, in 10 years, I got about 15 certifications. And so I think where I'm going with this is that um, it's a very methodical approach, and we can work together with just about anybody. And again, I was telling people what they had to do at home. So don't care if you come in the office. I'm not the chiropractor. I
Mhm.
just want you to go home and behave yourself. I'll run the
Mhm.
labs, but
Mhm.
and well, what do you mean? And it just turned out to be, it took me a long time. And I would listen to tapes that Dr. Timmons did. He was great. He did a radio show, and I listened to and recordings and over and over and over in my pickup truck. And this DRESS occurred to me. I like acronyms and easy to remember stuff. So diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation. DRESS, and all FDNs who know that that's our power. The power lies within the protocol, the lifestyle. So hardly anything you can do epigenetically speaking has more effect than what you put in your mouth 3 times a day or however often you're eating and that kind of thing. So diet became really important. It took me years to sort out how to individualize a diet because no two people are alike. There's no one diet right for everybody. There are foods that are wrong for everybody, sugar and all that stuff. But there's no one food that's right for everybody. So we do a food sensitivity test, by the way. It's a really good screening for what foods, and we can tune up your diet according to those principles of avoidance, what your body just doesn't do well with, along with metabolic typing, which is a way of looking at you genetically so that we get your ancestral diet just right, or a good place to start. And then we teach you how to modify it yourself. So diet is so critical. Rest, and I don't call it sleep because sleep's part of rest, but you need to rest your spirit in a sense, your emotions, and sometimes take a break, but you don't need a chill pill. So we create some habits and things you can do. Behind this screen right here is a day bed because sometimes I'll have a morning of 5 different meetings and the concept shifting that I have to do because I have 50 employees, but then I have individuals and I have teams. And so sometimes I just need to, I found that resting my mind and brain is really important, even in the middle of the day. So diet rest, which is beyond sleep, which you have to get. Then E stands for exercise. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on that. You can't be healthy if you're not moving your body, moving your lymph system, and expanding your lung power and heart power. And we call it cardiopulmonary. It's very, very important in our world. And stretching your limits. We don't do a lot of aerobics. Strength for sure, so you can have good hormone levels and muscle tone, and that's good for burning calories and metabolic rate and all these things. So diet, rest, exercise. Now the stress reduction is so huge, and I don't need to tell anyone what stress is because they know what the mental emotional stress is. Their job sucks, or their kids are misbehaving, or they have financial trouble, or spousal things. So stress is so much beyond that, though. When I first read in 2001 in a magazine that stress was the cause of 80% of all doctors' visits, I figured I have to become an expert in stress. And I'd come out of the environmental world, so I know that the environment is stressful, and we don't even know it. One doctor I know, Russell Jaffe, he'd be a good guy for you to interview. Russell Jaffe says we're marinating in a toxic soup. And I'm not sure it's that bad, but some people have it worse than others for sure. But stress goes beyond mental, emotional. There's psycho-spiritual for me. If I didn't have a purpose in life, I couldn't be happy. I'd be stressed. I know what I'm doing every day when I wake up. And I don't know if you've interviewed Ben Azadi. He's a good
Mhm.
guy. Yeah, he's the vitamin G guy, gratitude, like just your state of mind. So without that state of mind, things can just be more stressful if you don't have the right point of view. And so you have all that what we said was the mental, emotional, the psycho-spiritual, and this chemical, the stuff that's in our food and air and water and everything. And then there's the trauma. What I have is injury. I've had to have stem cells in both shoulders, my neck 3 times, my low back, because I did crazy things that hurt me, jujitsu and kickboxing and stuff. And I have you'll know, I've got a torn labrum in my right hip from years of kicking, and I could have a really devastating round kick, but now it hurt me more than it ever hurt anyone else. So all these types of stress, your body responds to the same way. The cortisol, DHEA, you get catabolic, your body starts breaking down. And then, of course, the last S is supplementation. And I don't really sell supplements, but I know a lot about them, and I've recommended them always because food isn't good enough. There's not enough vitamins and minerals and essential fatty acids and antioxidants and trace elements and phytonutrients in food anymore. Used to be.
Mhm.
Both my grandfathers were farmers and growers, so we ate stuff with dirt still on it, and that was good for you back then.
Mhm.
But nowadays you can't find that. So you need to supplement what's missing from food. That's just an obvious thing, all the things I talked about. And you need to get your macronutrient ratios, your protein, fat, and carbs totally down. That's really important. And you can even supplement for that. Now, supplements can also be used quickly for supporting weak organs and like digestion. People need digestive support. You get older, you don't make as much HCl, your enzymes are not there because your stomach isn't totally perfect, or your gut. So you can just uh, supplement by substituting for what's missing in food and by supporting weak systems. And we have one more S of supplementation, it's self-treatment. And maybe even one more stimulation. If you're going on a trip, wouldn't it be nice to have your immune system really perked up and paying attention to so you can stimulate. So the four S's of supplementation are substitute for what's missing, stimulate as needed, support weak systems until they're better. And then the last one is that self-treatment. You don't have to take harsh um, prescription medication for some things. There are natural products that have been developed over a couple thousand years, I'd say, that work without the side effects, risks, warnings, and contraindications. And so that's DRESS. And it's just how you get up in the morning. You do your whatever you're doing to be grateful, and then if you're a morning eating person, uh, I guess I mean if you like breakfast, eat the right breakfast. You'll have enough energy and satiation and well-being to get to the next meal,
Mm,
and so on.
awesome. Absolutely awesome. What a tour de force through so many important things. I do want to add to and underscore something you're saying about stress. Many of the people I take care of don't know that they're manifesting the erosive and corrosive manifestations of stress. And
Yeah.
I think this toxic super stew you described is pretty important. I think about Pilar Gerasimo talking about being a healthy deviant, where she
Mm.
says, we look to our left, we look to our right, we look in the crowd, and everybody's eating the standard American diet, and everybody is over consuming social media, and nobody's napping behind their screen to keep their mind agile throughout the day. We're just not seeing that in what we're immersed in. We're sort of our tribe is something like this. I get to be with my tribe on Thursdays when I get to hang out with somebody like you and my family and people that are close to me that take good care of themselves. And so I think it's really important that we not presume that this mess we're immersed in is actually an example of our hunter-gatherer physiology. I really
Yeah.
go back to we have hunter-gatherer physiology and genes, and when things were good, a reasonable guesstimate of a hunter-gatherer's lifestyle would be an abundance, sort of parasympathetic nervous system dominant affair with hanging out, walking 8 to 9 miles a day, harvesting, hunting, having sex, making babies, telling stories, looking at the stars. I mean, pretty good gig.
Pretty good gig. I love that we grow our own food. My wife and I live on a hill away from most things. We have a lake and mountains and um and it's idyllic from that point of view. But you're right. Continue, please, with the your view of stress.
Well, just that, probably again, many of us are cobblers without shoes, and I really had to learn this the hard way myself. A lot of, a motif I've seen in just about everybody in You're in My World is they've got an origin story, just like a comic book hero. And my origin story is I was getting stressed out as a conventional doctor. And not only learning functional medicine for my patients, but learning it for myself was salvational. And then I started setting professional boundaries and not admitting patients and not being in the hospital till 3 in the morning and not doing primary care. And I said, all we do is functional medicine. You have to have a primary care provider. We'll send a copy of every note to them.
Yeah.
I had people in town say I wasn't a real doctor. I thought, that's
Yes.
fine. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm healthy and
Yeah, you're a
and
witch
happy,
doctor.
but I said, hey, I've broken the spell. We're under the spell that we're not real in this Western industrialized society if we're not stressed out. That is a spell that needs to be broken. We need to break the spell.
That's perfect. My wife will love listening to you, and because she's my rock and place, and together we're pretty awesome, I got to tell you. But yeah, you need that. What do you think was the trigger? Was it some incident that, like some patient that you just finally realized that you couldn't take this anymore, or
Well, I'm small enough. Thankfully, I'll never get on Keith Richards' radar. But I remember after a chopper flew one of my patients out of here at 3 in the morning, a nasty stroke. And I looked in the mirror and I thought, if this keeps going, I'm going to look like Keith Richards.
yeah, yeah,
And just oxidized, 30 years older biologically than chronologically,
yes,
affixed black circles beneath the eyes and
understood.
the pallor. And I love his music,
Of
but
course,
I don't want to I don't want to go down early and I don't see any need to. And and so that was just kind of my aha moment. But I also my big thing was, how can I be helping my patients if I am not manifesting the discipline and integrity to have work-life balance? How can I possibly say to them, take a stand
yes.
when I'm not taking a stand?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can't be working all the time. And when you realize that, well, also, I'll throw this in there. Um, you quit working for money and you worked for your personal satisfaction and whatever other principles make you tick instead of the money. And the money's really important today, and maybe it always was some kind of currency. But if you're working for money, you're gonna find that that's a leading to a downward spiral. I'm not saying I don't make money because I do, but the reason I work is to help people.
Mhm.
And so I teach this course in functional lab work and natural protocols, but that's not the mission. Mission is for
Mhm.
them to go out there and do the work, like
Mhm.
duplicate, because I had this great system and it was working and we had a really successful clinic and I'm doing pretty good personally. But people kept saying, Reed, think of all the people that could get helped if you would teach others your system.
Mhm.
And so that's the real mission. So yeah, I want to help as many people as possible, but I can only see so many myself. So I have to get this thing out there. And that started in 2008 and 15. Well, I started with 19, my first 19
Mhm.
students, I guess. And then they wouldn't go away. They just they wouldn't go away. And so then they're still around. A lot of them, some people come and go, but I have people working for me that took my class 10 years ago or 12 years ago. And they, well, how can I help? And so now we're kind of moving, we're in 50 countries and stuff. Point was, it's the mission that I work for.
Mhm.
That's what gets me up in the morning.
Mhm.
And the
Yeah.
rest, it comes along with the territory when you know a few things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love what you're saying because and I love the quote by Edison too. I'm blown away that my job feels like I'm getting paid to be myself. It does not feel like work. All these riddles are so cool, and I'm so satisfied. I think it's very helpful actually that I got to see the things that don't respond well to conventional medicine for the first 6 years as an attending physician, because that was my big case. This autoimmune arthritis case, the person had been on their third immunomodulatory bone marrow suppressant drug,
Yeah.
was frustrated, despondent, overwhelmed, about to lose their job, thought their marriage was on the line, and was 6 months working with the naturopathic doctor at our integrative clinic, had over 50% resolution, no medications, probiotic, stress management, boswellia, bromelain, quercetin, just mind blowing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my jam, is seeing things that don't respond to conventional medicine get better. And I think we witness this suffering that's unnecessary. We know
Yes.
people can get better. And
Yeah.
then when we're helping them one at a time, some of us say, well, this is great helping one person at a time 1,000 times, but now I want to start helping 1,000 people in one stroke. And I
Yep.
think that's when we amplify our message and build programs and protocols because it starts to occur to us that, oh, we're in a unique position to manifest our compassion and our heart of service at a fuller amplitude. And there's something about the integrity or the resonance of that way of working that attracts other kindred spirits and really stands out to people. Again, I think they hear that ring of authenticity and some of them deeply want that.
It truly is a kindred spirit uh, component, or maybe even that's the overriding principle. Every FDN, which we call our practitioners FDNs, functional diagnostic nutrition, is they sign up because they want to help people.
Mhm.
And they also each kind of have their own problem that they want to overcome or resolve. And even though I keep teaching, we don't treat anything specifically, we treat everything non-specifically, and that's a legitimate term. Um, they still specialize because they had Hashimoto's or they had irritable bowel or they had
Mhm.
whatever it was. And so they kind of attract those people. But
Mhm.
only and they never would diagnose that person with the same thing they might have got diagnosed with. They know now that, hey, forget the diagnosis. It's in these chronic downward spiraling, stress related conditions, at least, that there's all of these factors going on. And that's what they're out there doing, teaching what I taught them. It's very rewarding. But I love what you said about the walk and the talk. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's really
Thank
important.
you. Anything you wanted to share today we didn't get to?
Doc, I was going to ask you if you're using peptides. It's just since we're here, I could have waited till later. But
Yeah,
do you
I
do
have
some of the
to.
advanced?
It's just a gap actually for me. And I have to, another thing, well, I strive for integrity
Yeah,
and transparency. And I think that's part of what my patients like. And so, one thing that's been very humbling about family medicine, the reason so many family medicine docs are KISS advocates, keep it simple superstar,
yeah.
is because the breadth and depth of what we're doing uh, just requires us to simplify protocols. And so basically, it's on my to-do list to figure out what's so cool about them, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah, I guess I'm recommending it that they're along the lines of DRESS,
Mhm.
that they're kind of like supplements, but they're super supplements. They're just short chain
Mhm.
amino acids, so
Mhm.
research has shown that proteins, specific little chains, have an effect on the gut or on the whatever gland or
Mhm.
organ or part of the body you want to talk about. So they're kind of like supercharged supplements, and they do require a prescription. So the public needs more physicians trained in their use, I think. And
Mm.
depending on what kind of doctor you're on that, I was just curious. The only other thing I would like to give your listeners a free gift if they want it, and the there's a URL that we made for. Do you mind if we give out a URL?
This is perfect. Yeah, because people need to know where to find you, and
Okay.
this sort of thing's wonderful.
I'm just double checking for it here, Dr. Rob. Um, it's fdntraining.com/Downey. So what we do is functional diagnostic nutrition. We have 1,000 practitioners waiting to help people, but and we work very well with doctors. And there's a training program, learn all about it. But I'm giving away our Dress for Health Success. So it's more on that DRESS. It's a little booklet I wrote, and that's free to anyone who goes to fdntraining.com/Downey. And I mean, just depends on the interview. I recommend books and videos and fun things where people can get more answers. We want
Mhm.
to stimulate curiosity and
Mhm.
ask your doctor what is the only thing I'd say. In addition, ask your doctor why. Well, why am I hypothyroid? And if they say
Mhm.
we don't know, who's the we, and we don't know, well, they're not looking. So that's my admonition, if you will, for the public to start asking why.
Hmm.
Just like
Beautiful.
kids, we hate when our kids ask why, but it's not a bad question.
Awesome. Well, this has been great, Reed. I really appreciate it. Thank you for
Me
sharing
too.
your wisdom.
I've enjoyed it much, Dr. Rob. Thank you.
Have a great day. Thanks for joining us for the Seaworthy podcast. Seaworthy exists to help people overcome their health challenges and be fully vital. If you think we've earned it, please consider giving this podcast a like, subscribing, and giving us a 5-star rating on the platform of your choice. Thanks.